right, it's You're All Doomed, podcast that cleaves Friday the 13th, the final chapter, into 13-minute chunks. I'm Rainstorm Jogger Greg.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And this segment begins with Terry's body pinned to the wall of the house and ends with Ted getting uncomfortably close to the screen of his vintage porno movie. The gang is sitting around enjoying this reel of stag film when Sarah suddenly decides it's time to stop wondering what sex is like and tells Doug that she needs a few minutes, but to follow her upstairs. I guess she needs time to put on her diaphragm or something. I don't.
Yeah, this was some really kind of painful, flirtatious banter going back and forth. Sarah tells Doug that she's going to go upstairs, and Doug's like, "Oh, are you tired?" And she's like, "No." And then she asks him if he would mind sleeping on the bottom bunk tonight. And Doug's like, "Well, why? Do you want to sleep on the top bunk?" And she's like, "No." And it was just like the least titillating flirtation I've ever seen.
He was having to put a lot of puzzle pieces together to figure out what she was talking about.
Yeah, I actually felt bad for Doug and the boring sex he's about to have.
I have more concerns about her that we'll address in a little while. But I will say that as she leaves, there's a cute good night moment of connection between Ted and Sarah. It seems like they have genuine affection for each other. But that's immediately undercut by Ted checking out her ass and then turning back lecherously to give Doug like the So, even a moment of true human connection can be destroyed by the creepy Ted.
Back at the Jarvis house, Mrs. Jarvis has returned from, I'm guessing, a run, but it is at night in the woods and it's pouring rain and storming. So I'm not exactly sure where she was going. It's possible she just got caught in the storm. But when she gets home, the power is out and she can't find Tommy or Trish.
Yeah, she wanders around the dark kitchen calling people's names for what feels like 20 minutes.
While trying the light switches at least 41 times to see if it's going to turn on the lights.
And finally she decides to wander outside again in the pouring rain to find Gordon the dog.
Who?
Gordon the dog. Are you familiar with?
Oh, no, I don't remember the dog.
Oh, they haven't really established him very clearly,
okay.
But apparently the dog is named Gordon.
Oh, cool. Okay.
There's an unfortunate shot of Mrs. Jarvis with her sweatpants. It looks like she's got a ball sack.
So Mrs. Jarvis and her ball sack go around the side of the house, and she's startled by something and just kind of like shrieks. And
yeah, she turns to the camera and then is immediately terrified, but we never see by what. So we don't really know what her fate is here.
That's when we cut to the inside of Trish's car, and they're apparently on the way to the party. But wasn't the party next door to where they live?
They're driving around aimlessly all the time. I don't really get where they're coming back from. Tommy's got 2 lollipops in his mouth. Was that a thing, or is it just a weird acting choice?
I don't know, but he tells Trish to slow down because he almost dropped his lollipop, and I feel like this is actually Corey Feldman breaking character and saying this, and not actually Tommy. Like, he's just being a dick, like, "I almost dropped my lollipop, bitch." Yeah,
or yeah, that's true. Or, Trish is driving so fast because she's horny for Rob. She wants to get back.
I gotta get next door.
Exactly. We cut back to the party house, and we're upstairs with Sarah getting into her seduction gear. But she's dressed and acting like it's her fucking wedding night.
Yeah, there's a lot of
wistful gazing into the mirror and touching herself lightly and like, look how pretty I
Yeah, I feel like there should be like a Disney song playing in the background. And you're like, "So you want to make love to a man?"
Why Disney?
It's the version of Frozen I never got to see.
Trish and Tommy arrive back at home and can't find their mom, so they begin combing the house and head upstairs, where we see Mrs. Jarvis's bedroom, which jumps out at me because it has virtually no decoration. There's an institutional-looking metal bed frame. There's just a complete lack of personality in this room, which leads me to feel like between this and her gazing out of the window earlier, that there's some disturbing backstory to Mrs. Jarvis and makes me, speculate as to why she and her husband are no longer together.
Or maybe her ex-husband just took all the nice furniture, Greg.
Oh, that's possible. But why wouldn't she have, maybe even just put some flowers out or something. It's just, it's
Because she's dead inside.
Oh, okay, true. Trish wanders back out into the rain wearing nothing but a weird dress that makes it look like she's not wearing pants. Like, it just looks like a nightshirt almost. She's going to look for Rob now. And as you pointed out earlier, he's close enough that she locates his tent with ease.
In seconds, she's there. Yeah.
So she hunkers down in his tent to wait for him to come back. And someone is approaching the tent. We get the Ki-Ki-Ki-Mi-Mi-Mi, which turns out to be false because it's only Rob. So it's another instance of where I feel like they're cheating with that little musical sting.
And we all know how you feel about that. But I agree. It's a cheat. And I'm not completely certain, but is it the first time we've heard that theme in this movie? Because it did jump out at me.
I think you might be right.
It jumped out at me as odd, and I didn't know if it was because I knew that it wasn't going to be Jason, or if it was because it was the first time I heard it. But.
Yeah, they hadn't established it in this movie yet at all. Yeah, I think you might be right. So Rob doesn't even realize that it's Trish in the tent because he fucking unloads on the tent,
and he barely misses Trish.
Yeah, I mean he's swiping with the machete and knows someone's in there, but is startled when it's this girl that he just met.
I don't understand. I mean, granted, he did see Jason moments earlier, kind of lurking around his campsite, but I don't know why he'd be so surprised to see Trish, considering it's her backyard.
Yeah, he does seem unduly perplexed that it turns out to be her.
We go back to the party house where Jimmy and Tina are basking in post-coital bliss, and he asks her if he was a dead fuck, and Tina says that he was incredible. So that's some nice little redemption for Jimbo.
Yeah. Unfortunately, after this sexual validation, Jimbo then struts downstairs like he's suddenly John fucking Hamm, brandishing her panties to show to Ted, no less. I'm surprised he doesn't sniff them on his way down. He heads into the kitchen for a celebratory bottle of wine and a corkscrew, which he can't find.
We then learn the whereabouts of the corkscrew when Jason rams it into Jimmy's hand, pinning him to the kitchen counter.
Followed immediately by a meat cleaver to Jimbo's face.
So now Jimbo truly is a dead fuck.
Nice. There's some really great goopy sounds and quivering. This is a top-notch effect. I think that it's a prosthetic on Crispin Glover's face, but it's a nice use of editing and lighting and just brutal. This is a Hall of Fame kill right here. As we've made note repeatedly, Jimbo was played by the actor Crispin Glover, whose middle name is actually Hellion. His father, Bruce Glover, played assassin Mr. Wint in the James Bond film Diamonds Are Forever. Crispin went on to portray George McFly in the first Back to the Future, but couldn't come to an agreement with the producers to appear in a sequel, both philosophically and monetarily by some reports. They went ahead and used his likeness and, in fact, through makeup, made a different actor resemble him enough that he sued, and there is now a Screen Actors Guild clause preventing people from reproducing the likeness of uncast actors when making future movies. He also appeared in The River's Edge, which was kind of an angsty teen mainstay when you and I were in high school together. I remember a bunch of people watching that repeatedly.
While he was out promoting that movie in 1987, he has a pretty infamous appearance on Late Night with David Letterman, where he appeared as a character in a film that he was working on. That I don't think the film ended up being released, so it made his appearance even weirder. But it's worth looking for that segment on YouTube because David Letterman has absolutely no patience for Crispin Glover's bullshit, and actually abruptly ends the interview when he just gets tired of everything that's going on.
Yeah,
so it's worth checking out.
He walks off stage, and then even after the commercial break, comes back, and Crispin Glover has been dismissed, and he continues to seethe about it on camera. Glover then did come back to the show 3 weeks later with no odd behavior, but it's still, like you say, it's gone down in history as one of the best live TV moments that we could watch. Crispin Glover has a steady list of credits, So he still works, but he also self-publishes and makes a lot of independent art films, albeit very slowly. He was summed up pretty humorously by Hadley Freeman in The Guardian in a July 2015 article that, as an actor, Glover has long been the fascinating answer to the rarely asked question, what would Nicolas Cage's weirder and more talented brother be like?
It's no secret that Crispin Glover is an odd duck. I read somewhere that he keeps this binder of questions that he's been asked in interviews, and as a question is asked, it's prohibited from being asked again. And so apparently this binder is just inches thick with all these different questions from different interviews he's done, and he prints these out and hands them over to press in advance and says, here you go, you're ready to interview me, but don't ask me any of these questions. And it's just kind of a ridiculous request, but it's just one of the many kind of weird stories out there about Crispin Glover.
We need to send him an interview request for the podcast so that we get this binder, because I just want to see it. Back upstairs, Tina peers out of the window looking for her sister, but sees both bicycles. So she goes to another window down the hall and looks through the rain-streaked glass. She's puzzled by the fact that it appears her sister hasn't left. As she's looking through this second window, boom, Jason smashes through the glass and hurls her through the window, Amanda Hunsaker style.
Yeah, Jason's first defenestration.
It's glorious. She's thrown down to the car and hits like an atom bomb. The glass blows out, and they draw it out because they show her body rebounding over the side of the smashed roof of the station wagon, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, this was a genuinely surprising kill because she was looking out of a second-story window, and there was no balcony or anything outside, so you would feel like she was pretty safe looking out that window. But Jason just hanging out on a trellis, essentially, on the side of the window, and just reaches around, and it makes you wonder how long he'd been up there. And was he just hanging there like Spider-Man for 20 minutes? But and it's just convenient that Tina just happened to look out the window. But I mean, it also could be a very calculated move by Jason, where he's like, well, hey, maybe she's going to get concerned about her sister and look out the window and see what's going on. And guess what? I'm going to be waiting there for her.
Yeah, there feels like a little bit of trap laying going on here. Watching it in slow motion, it's hilarious to see the stunt person is wearing flesh-colored tights to simulate Tina's lack of pants. But it's just a great kill. I love that one. Tina was played by Camilla Moore, twin sister of Carrie. And Camilla stepped into a role on General Hospital that was previously played by Finola Hughes. Fans were immediately up in arms, and the character was then killed off in a boat explosion, only to later be resurrected by Finola Hughes herself on a different show, All My Children, which my niece was on for several seasons as Susan Lucci's granddaughter. Camilla Moore appeared on Mansion Hunters, a reality show on the Reels network in 2014, and is on LinkedIn. Does have a LinkedIn page, so don't hassle her or anything, but she's still around and doing some stuff.
Back in Rob's tent, Trish and Rob are mid-conversation, and Rob starts talking about his dead sister, Sandra, who you might recall as being the one that was shish kebab to her boyfriend, Jeff, in part 2.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a continuity error that clearly they intended to be Sandra from part 2, but that makes absolutely no sense. It's only been like 3 days, so the fact that he's dealt with his grief and is already out hunting her killer is preposterous. And he's armed with some news clippings about Jason's goings-on that feature an artist's rendering of soggy lake boy Jason. I wonder almost if that's one of Alice's sketches of what she claims to have seen in the lake at the end of part 1.
It must have been. I could see her kind of sitting, at a desk with, the artist and kind of describing. He's like, well, he's really mossy and he's a little slimy and he was bald. But yeah, it's a pretty good representation of him.
Yeah, it's a spooky sketch. It's weird that, they've immediately latched onto Jason Voorhees, which previously was just this disbelieved local legend. Suddenly, the newspapers on reporting it are reporting it as though it's fact, and they've really latched on to him as the explanation for all these killings. But it's nice and spooky, and I don't have too many problems with it.
Well, there's also a weird back and forth here where Trish kind of tells Rob that his search is kind of pointless because the man who killed his sister is dead, but then Rob reminds her that Jason's body is missing from the morgue, which Trish knows because we've seen the headline. But, and he also mentions that there's two people from the morgue that are missing, so that's Axel and Nurse Morgan.
Right.
So Jason hid those bodies somewhere. But Rob's obviously convinced that Jason is alive, and then suddenly Trish believes him because, which she already should have believed him anyway, but now she's like, oh yeah, you're right.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I like the lore that they're trying to introduce here. I just wish that it had been thought through. Again, it's like the fact that the killer of the events from these last 3 days is somehow identified and connected with this possibly fictional boy from 5 years earlier. It doesn't really hold up, but so be it.
My favorite part of this scene is that as they're sitting in this tent going back and forth about motives and why things are happening the way they're happening, they both realize that Tommy's alone at the house and they're like, oh shit. So they have to scramble out of there to get back to the house.
and almost in the same fashion, the movie remembers that Tommy's at the house by himself because there's a completely unimportant and poorly edited scene of Tommy checking the fuse box.
Yeah, and I don't know where he is. Is he in the basement? Is he in the garage? But yeah, he's just got a flashlight and he's looking for the fuse box because the power's still out.
It almost feels like Corey Feldman's agent insisted on a certain number of seconds of screen time, and they were just shy, so they had to throw in this little insert. But it almost immediately then cuts back to Ted watching more of the vintage porno movie.
And upstairs, Doug and Sarah are taking a shower together. And Doug presses Sarah's butt cheeks up against the shower door until they look like two canned hams.
Yeah, we've got some pressed ham going on there. Making out in the shower, back in high school, it was fun, but now
show off.
I find it kind of inconvenient. It's cramped. It's dangerous. I feel like precarious. And I don't feel like it really adds anything to the experience. But these are teenagers. They're supposed to be, hot and heavy. It's a weird thing for her to be doing for her first time.
Yeah, it's a quick jump to be making from I'm this, sweet, innocent girl to let's go take a shower together.
Sarah's pressed ham is pretty much the last important thing that happens in this chunk. We're back downstairs with Ted, who, rather baked, kind of wanders over to the screen to start touching the image of the naked black and white dancer from the 1920s.
Yeah, he's caressing the screen and kind of giggling and just
it's really uncomfortable, and I really hope that the next segment doesn't begin with him pulling his pants down and spanking. The death count, we say farewell to Jimbo, we say farewell to Tina, and then we have some unconfirmed fate for Mrs. Jarvis. Maybe she'll show up again later, maybe not.
She saw something she didn't like, but yeah, we don't really know what's happened to her. So until next episode, I am Brian.
I'm Greg.
And you continue to be all doomed.